네, 안녕하세요. 네, 저는 세븐틴 비주얼 꿈나무 민규입니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 세븐틴의 총괄리더 에스쿱스라고 합니다.
안녕하세요. 세븐틴의 작은 거인 막내 디노입니다.
What in the world is a visual? What does being a maknae mean? What's the difference between a lead and a main vocal? All these and more in this episode of KPU. Good morning, class, and welcome back to K-Pop University. First of all, I'd like to apologize for not uploading this episode last Friday. This month of October has just been crazy for me. Many things happened this month that were just simply out of my control, but hey, better late than never, right? So in the last episode of KPU, I told you guys that we would discuss the different positions within a K-pop group. What does being in a certain position mean? And most especially, what are the differences between these positions? Well, today we are going to be doing just that. Now, if you remember from the last episode, there are a lot of positions in a K-pop group. Main vocal, leader, main rapper, just to state a few. Every member in a K-pop group holds at least one position. But what do all these positions even mean? Well, let's dive into this, shall we? First of all, let me establish the main positions. These are leader, visual, maknae, vocals, and rappers. First of all, most groups have what is called a leader. Now, a leader is, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. A leader leads a group. The leaders keep the members in check, talk in behalf of the group on like music shows and such, and they take responsibility for the group's actions. They're essentially the backbone of the group. Now, some notable leaders of K-pop are G-Dragon of Big Bang, JB of GOT7, XC of WJSN, Sowon of G-Friend, Rap Monster of BTS, and Jihyo from Twice. Now, these individuals are usually very outspoken, most comfortable in front of crowds, and they work very well under pressure. Since leaders have to take the heat for the team, it's essential to have these qualities under their belt. However, there are some cases where groups have no leader for different reasons. Two prime examples are 2PM and Blackpink. 2PM's former leader, also known as J Park, has left the group years back, and the group did not want to have someone replace him or someone take over his position in the group. Blackpink, YG Entertainment's newest girl group, also has no appointed leader. Yang Hyun-suk, or also known as Papa YG, the CEO of YG Entertainment, states this: "We decided to go without a leader for Blackpink. The group never had a leader from the get-go. Because the four of them spent such a long time together, whenever a project is suggested to them, they discuss it together for the results." Now, next up on the list is visual. Visuals of the group are also quite self-explanatory. Visuals of K-pop groups tend to be one of two things, or sometimes even both, either the best looking or the most popular. Now, best looking is pretty much a subjective term. Some people may think that other members aside from the official visual are better looking. Some people may think Hoya is better looking than L, and some people may think that Jennie is better looking than Jisoo. And that's okay, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. However, there are members of the group that are appointed to the visual name. L of Infinite and Jisoo of Blackpink are prime examples of a visual in their respective groups. And other examples of visuals were to be Kai of EXO, Jin of BTS, Suzy from Miss A, and Seulgi of Red Velvet. Now, our third group position is known as the maknae. If you watched the first ever episode of KPU, you guys will remember that maknae is the term for the youngest member. There's not really much to the title of being the maknae other than being the youngest member. Sometimes in larger groups, there's also what is called the maknae line, which consists of all of the youngest members usually born in the same year. An example of this would be WJSN's maknae line of Yeoreum, Dayoung, and Yeonjung, all born in the year of 1999, or Twice's maknae line of Chaeyoung and Jui. There's also a subdivision of maknaes called the pseudo-maknae, where one member seems younger than the official maknae. Taking the last example of Chaeyoung and Jui, put the two right next to each other. Without knowing their ages, who would you think is the actual maknae? If you said Chaeyoung, then you just found yourself a pseudo-maknae. Pseudo-maknaes tend to appear young, mostly due to their facial features and also their height out of all things. But in reality, they are older than the official maknae. Now, time to get to the nitty-gritty, the vocals. Now, the vocals of K-pop group divides into three categories: the sub-vocal, the lead vocal, and the main vocal. Now, these roles are pretty different in some way or another, so make sure you listen up. There's especially a lot of confusion between what the difference is between the lead vocal and the main vocal. I mean, it sounds pretty redundant, doesn't it? It's actually something that most K-pop fans, whether they're casual listeners or veterans, not even they know what the difference is. Well, to put it in simplest terms after comparing and contrasting different groups out there, let's look at it this way. So, lead vocals and main vocals. Now, main vocalists tend to have the most lines in their group, the strongest vocal ability, or have the most extensive range out of their entire group. And sometimes they're the ones to hit the high notes, and they're usually the ones that you'll hear singing the chorus of your favorite songs. Now, some examples of main vocalists are Kihyun from Monsta X, Baekhyun and Chen from EXO, Jihyo from Twice, and Jungkook from BTS. Lead vocals, however, are very similar to main vocals, except in vocal range and quite possibly line distribution. Now, lead vocals tend to have very stable vocal power, and they're second in line to the main vocalist. They have slightly less lines than the main vocalist, but enough to know that they're there. Think of the difference this way. Main vocalist is who you mainly hear singing, and lead vocalists lead the group into the song. A perfect example here were to be Nayeon of Twice. For all of you Twice fans out there, you guys would already know that Nayeon for the past 3 comebacks has led the group into every single song. By that I mean she has the first line of every single comeback song till now. Now, this may not be the case for many other groups out there, but Nayeon would be the prime example of what a lead vocalist is. More examples would be Shonu of Monsta X, Nayeon of Twice as I just said, Xiumin and Suho of EXO, and Jimin of BTS. Now lastly, sub-vocals kinda get the short end of the stick. This is where I would fall into if I was in a K-pop group. Sub-vocals unfortunately do not get many lines in songs. In comparison to the lead and main vocals, sub-vocals tend to have slightly weaker vocal ability. Essentially, they're backups or the backbone to the main and lead vocals. In some cases, you wouldn't even notice them singing in comeback songs. Some examples of sub-vocalists are Hyungwon of Monsta X, Sungyul of Infinite, Sohae of IOI, and Sehun of EXO. So the hierarchy of vocalists in terms of line distribution and vocal ability goes as follows. The main vocal, the lead vocal, and lastly the sub-vocal. Now rappers share a similar division with the vocals, except there is no such thing as a sub-rapper. There are only main and lead rappers. Let's go back to the whiteboard, shall we? So remember when I said that main vocalists have the strongest vocal ability? Well, the same thing kind of applies here. The main rapper has the strongest rap talent. You already know the types, the rappers that have the most charisma, raps the most powerfully, and sometimes even has the best flow. And they would also help produce the lyrics of the group's songs whenever given the opportunity to. Now, lead rappers are similar to lead vocalists. They still have astounding rap talent, but they still come second when it comes to the comparison to the main rapper. Now, the line between the main and the lead rappers are slightly more blurred and more harder to distinct. To explain this in the simplest terms as possible, we'll stick to 2 examples of 2 well-known groups that have distinct rappers, BTS and GOT7. BTS has 3 rappers, Rap Monster, J-Hope, and Suga. Rap Monster is the main rapper, whereas Suga and J-Hope are lead rappers.
뺏기는 걸 베끼는 놈을 잡아다가 후배는 선배는 제끼는 놈 놈팽이는 내가 베끼는 그를 베끼는 역사를 바닥에 새기는 몸도 재미도 없는 래퍼들 사이에서는 남들보다 더 챙기는 몸 잘 나가는 덕에 박들을 베낀 형들의 시기절 수덕에 생기는 소.
In GOT7 there are also 3 rappers, Mark, Jackson, and Bam Bam. Mark is the main rapper, whereas Jackson and Bam Bam are the lead rappers.
맞아 나이가 많건 적건 동생이고 누나건 날 잡고 붙잡고 좋다고 같이 놀자 내 몸은 하나인데 수요는 계속 있으니 Every lady wants a piece of me 눈부신 햇살이 다날 위한 것만 같아 오늘도 나의 하루가 어김없이 너로 시작돼
화장하지 말라고 과장이면 척했어 제발 노래 가사라고 생각하지 말고 내 말
It's really hard to tell who's the main and who is the lead. You can't really tell who's in what position until you read their official member profiles. And lastly, there are dancers. Like the vocals and rappers, dancers also has this category of main and lead dancers. The same hierarchy applies here, but it's the most confusing out of the primary positions. Main dancers have exceptional dance ability, they're very experienced, and sometimes they even get solos. But because they have such great dance ability, they may also get less parts than other members in their group. The reason? Because they need the breath for dancing. So sometimes the main dancers could also be the sub-vocalists. Remember, members can have more than one position. Lead dancers, on the other hand, are usually placed in the front formation when the group is dancing all together. I know it's a little bit confusing, but look at it this way. In EXO, Kai and Lay are the main dancers, whereas Sehun and Xiumin are the lead dancers.
Call me monster I'm creeping in your heart 뒤집고 무너뜨리고 삼켜 우리를 줄게 눈동자에 호기심에 이미 넌 빠져들었고
And with that, we have covered all the positions within a K-pop group. By now, you know the responsibilities of the leader, the roles of the visuals and maknaes, and the differences between the main and the lead vocalists and rappers of a K-pop group. And with that, you know just a little bit more about K-pop culture. Hey guys, I hope you all enjoy this episode of KPU. I know that this is another video geared towards the newcomers to K-pop, but I hope that more experienced K-pop listeners can also take something away from this too. The difference between the main and the lead vocalists kind of confused me all the way up till present day when I made this video. But by now, I hope you guys could have used this video to help clear up any questions you guys have about these positions, and to give you a better picture of what these positions really are. But anyways guys, if you enjoyed this episode of KPU, please leave a big like and hopefully you can share it with a friend. This will let me know that you guys are still supporting this slowly growing series. I really want K-pop University to become a stronger series, but I can't do it without your guys' help. So after you've done that, please give me more topics to discuss in KPU. Leave your suggestions in the comment section down below, and you and your suggestion may be featured and may be responsible for the next episode of KPU. And that's my time guys. My name is Nathan, SYJ Official. Until then, see you guys next time. Bye.